Great. Good to see you all. All survived the storm last night. Glad to hear it. It was a heavy storm, wasn't it? Never seen anything like it in our lives. And so today's story is like that. It's an amazing act of nature that happens. This story of the great fish, which was so astounding that people followed Jesus at the start of his ministry. So I'll read out the little passage from Luke chapter 5. It said, one day, as Jesus was standing by the lake, the people were crowding round him, listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled to their partners in the other boats, "Come and help them." And they came and filled both boats to full, that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats up on the shore and left everything and followed him. It's quite a dramatic story, isn't it? Does it sound okay to Mike? Is it right? It's booming at the back here, if you can help me. I'm deafening myself on stage. So it's a great catch of fish. You've probably heard this story many times before. And in fact, a few years ago, we'd set up this net, and we put names of people in here that would like to see touched by God's love. And we brought it out again today because I think sometimes we bring these things out, don't we? And then we feel a sense of disappointment or embarrassment. And this was tucked away in the back of the church somewhere, forgotten about in the sacred space. And so we thought we'd dig it out again today and just see today whether we could just re-energize our faith for God to move in people's lives, people that we care about, people that we love and care for. So I'm going to show you, I know you're very grown up, I'll show you the Miracle Maker version of the story, which is quite touching, isn't it? I think if you remember it. It's only a minute or two, but just look again at the story and allow God to speak to you afresh through this story. Oh, 1 second. I'll come back to that.
Oh, push the boat further out.
Out?
Yeah, into the deep.
Why? What for?
Let your nets down for a catch, of course.
No one catches fish during the day. They hide from the sunlight, right down in the depths. But if you insist, I'll let them down. In the middle of the day. We could be here for hours.
Simon.
Could be here for days.
Oh. Simon!
What is it? What?
Pull! Pull! I can't! They'll break the net!
James! John! Come on! Row!
Leave me. Lord, leave me. I am such a sinful man.
Don't be afraid, Simon. From today, I'm going to make you a fisher of men.
And I was thinking about it. Jesus met them in their workplace, didn't he? It wasn't in an office, but it was out on the shore, their boats in their neighborhood. And they'd been out all night fishing, hadn't they, when Jesus came across them? So they were tired out. They were full of shame. They were disappointed. Obviously, if they didn't catch anything, then they also went poor, and they didn't eat that day. They'd lost confidence. Starting to sound like Southampton Football Club now, isn't it? They're failing, discouraged, embarrassed. And when I looked at those words, it's true of the fishermen, don't you agree? That's how they would have felt, true of our club. But actually, I thought back through last week, and there's quite a few people that I met during the week that probably could identify with some of those words there, that people that I come across every day in my community or workplace, they are tired out. They're full of shame. They're disappointed. They've lost confidence. Lost people that I chat to, I don't know about you, feel like they're failing. They're discouraged. They're embarrassed by things. And so the story hasn't changed, has it? And Jesus came to the fishermen in their community, in their neighborhood, and in their workplace. And I guess what we're saying already through the worship today is Jesus is relentless about that. He doesn't stay in heaven, but he leaves the 99 and chases the lost sheep, comes after the one. And so he sees all these people that are tired out, full of shame, disappointed, and so on. And he pursues them with his love. And that's a great encouragement for us, isn't it? To think Jesus sees them, he cares about them, and he's moving towards them. So then he says to Simon, and it says it in Matthew elsewhere, it says, "Come, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men," is what it says to him. And it says that Peter's response was immediate. Him and his brother left their nets, this business. I'd have been thinking to myself, I don't know about you, I was thinking about today, I was thinking, we can make a really good business here, Jesus. You're good at this fish thing. You and me, I'll cut you in 10%. We can get a lot of fish together, make some cash. But Peter wasn't thinking like that. Just me this afternoon. So it wasn't about being a great fisherman or prosperity, was it? It was about this meaning and purpose that Peter found. And actually, Jesus went straight to the shame, didn't he? Jesus didn't, but Peter said, I'm an awful man. I'm a sinful man. And so he expressed his shame, and Jesus spoke in that acceptance into him. And so Peter found love, acceptance, meaning, and purpose in that moment, didn't he? And thought, you know what? I wasn't getting that from the fishing all night, so I'm in. I'm going to follow you, Jesus. Leave this stuff behind and do that. So when Jesus said that, he was doing three things, and I think the same three things are there tonight as what Richard's brought through and Bev's brought through, is to all of us, is an invitation to actually live life for Christ, with him in us, giving us strength, not living out of our own strength, but living with his strength in us. So it's an invitation to this life in God, which isn't about how strong we are or how successful we are or how good we are at fishing or any of these things, but it's about having a meaning, a purpose in God. And then he's asking us to respond. So he's saying, come follow me, come my way. What are you going to do? You're going to carry on living your life as you are, or you're going to come and do it my way. Come and follow me. So it's a response that Jesus asked for. But then he finishes with a promise, doesn't he? He says, but actually, if you do follow me, I'm going to bring real meaning and purpose into your life. I'm going to make you a fisher of men. You're going to be a person that brings meaning and purpose into other people's lives. You're going to bring my love and my life into their lives. You're going to see the joy that comes from someone who's been disappointed in life and shamed in life to finding acceptance and grace and love in me. And it's going to be the best thing you've ever done in your life. So it's a great, great thing Jesus has done. Do you agree? It's a nice thing. It's a good thing. And so that's our call. And so we've tried to think about this verse. Bev showed it the other week, but we've been looking at a new way of trying to express the church priorities, what we're trying to do. And so we've created this little slide. We're going to get some flyers done very soon, aren't we? where we're focusing on three things. It's about passionate spirituality. The people in the community, people anywhere who see us will know that we're not just signed up for this because we got into a habit of going to church on a Sunday when we were kids, but because we passionately follow Jesus. So we've left behind the nets and the rubbish, and we want to say, yeah, God, we want to follow you. So there's a passion in our spirituality that people can see, that we know that we've got, that is not religious or conformed to what people are telling us to do or religious rules, but it comes from inside us, not from outside. And so we've got to look at how do we stoke up that passionate spirituality individually, corporately, how are we doing that? And so there's a whole strand that we've got there as one of our priorities. Creative solutions is some of the more wacky things that we're doing, like the waffle truck parked out outside, some new ways of engaging with people. But the second one, which is really about today, missional discipleship, is that Jesus said he wasn't just about pulling in hundreds of converts, was he? But it was about saying, come follow me. So there was a mission element, but then he was growing them up to be like him. And I will make you a fisher of men. Just as I've just fished you, you're also going to be people that are contagious, that are spreading this good news. The word evangelism comes from that Greek word evangel, doesn't it? You all know this, but evangel means good news. So evangelism and evangelical, they've all become tarnished words, but all they mean is when Joy's in the room, it's good news. When Bev turns up at a meeting, that's great news because they're carrying this life about them. And so if we are people of the good news, people in our communities should be pleased when we turn up, not worried that we're going to be Bible bashing them, which is what that term evangelism could be seen as. So missional discipleship means that we can't just say, yeah, we're missional, we're reaching out to people, without a sense that they're also going to be doing the same, that there's going to be a missional element to the way we grow people up, so that everyone's on the same page. Follow? And then the great thing is that Jesus does the work. So he said, I will make you fishers of men. So once we have this life of God, this spirit within us, that's what it does. It makes us his witnesses. Acts chapter 1, verse 8. When the Holy Spirit comes, you will be my witnesses. You'll bear fruit. To that sense, if you're in the vine, you'll bear fruit. And so it's a bit like, next picture, it's an apple tree or several apple trees. If you're an apple tree, what type of fruit do you bear? Normally. Now, always, always bear, apple trees always bear apples. And so, for us, when we become disciples of Jesus, we are automatically going to be fishers of men. That's just what he creates. That's what he does. So, disciples of Jesus make disciples of Jesus. That's who we are. Apple trees make apples, disciples make disciples. Got it? So, we don't have to fret about it or feel it's anything we have to strain to succeed in, but it's knowing that's who we are. That is what Jesus is making. That's who he calls us to be. As we follow him, we come to him, we accept his invitation, we respond to him. That's who he makes us to be. Somebody wrote this. Remember, evangelism doesn't mean Bible bashing. It means being good news. This is a quote from Robert Munger, said, evangelism, being good news, is a spontaneous overflow of a glad and free heart in Jesus Christ. Don't you think it's true? When you see that in people, we all respond positively to it, don't we? Bev and I were chatting this morning. There was, did you see the priest? I know I'm talking about Britain's Got Talent every week, my sad and shameful life. But did you see the priest on Britain's Got Talent last night? Anyone see that? So there's a little Irish priest, and he sang a little song, didn't it? Everybody hurts sometime. And the response from the judges and the crowds, Simon Cowell got up on his feet and applauded him, was beautiful. But what's beautiful about it is just someone responding to a glad and free heart in Jesus. That's all that priest points at situation. So, do you think you could be a glad and free heart in Jesus? Yeah, resounding yes. And in which case, you're going to be good news, aren't you? If you're a glad and free heart in Jesus, you're going to be good news to the communities, the workplaces, the fellow dog walkers, whoever it may be that you come across. You're going to be good news to them. The other thing I wanted to think about today, because honestly, I feel like Peter sometimes, you know this verse here. Anyone else feel like this? I've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. Anyone else feel like that? Sometimes, yeah, I do feel like that today. So, but we can, can't we? We're like, Phil, I've worked so hard and I can't see the fruit of my day. Give me a hands up if you ever feel like that. It's hard, isn't it? And the Bible does talk about us actually laboring, and that there's a strenuous part of this work to see this harvest come, there's a grace that's in this story, isn't there? But the disciples were there working hard. I was thinking back, we've had a really exciting year, and we opened up a new school in Southampton. So lots of you have been on that journey, but it opened in September. Primary school teacher appointed, Mrs. Woodman. Pupils playing drums. That's not your school, okay, Sid Cup. I didn't want to put Southampton children on there. But it opened up. I tell you what, it was a lot of work, heck of a lot of work, and you have to do things. Joy and I are all both having to do governor training for hours and hours just so that the school stays open, and so that we're good governors, to be fair. So it's years of work that we've put in, Dave, Billy, Joy, and many others. But it's good news to the community. This school has opened up in the midst of a brand new, there's buildings everywhere opening up in town. It is good news, and it feels worth it. It feels fruitful. But there have been times over the last 3 or 4 years when you think, we are getting nowhere. We've worked all night long, and we can't see the fruit. But now, 3 or 4 years later, all that talking to parents in parks and saying, hey, would you join our vision for a school? All of that hard work pays off, but we didn't see it at the time. So we have to be patient, don't we, with this harvest. When you plant a seed, it doesn't just pop up immediately, does it? It can take more than a day. It can take more than a week. It can take months, can't it, for these little seeds to bear fruit. And so we have to be patient and hold on. I've been working, some of you know this, on this Young Life thing, which I'm wearing the badge today. So 3 years ago, I went out to Canada to see the Young Life thing, because I was told it's one of the best youth work setups in the world. So I went out to see it. I went to the camp. I went to several clubs. I met committees. I went to a fundraiser. And I went out to sort of Toronto way and saw what's happening there. And then the last 3 years, I've just been talking to people about whether we set it up here in Southampton. So we've worked and worked. And even now, I still feel like I've worked all night and haven't caught anything yet. It's a lot of hard work. Today, one of the team that I work with, called Bethan, who's going to be a staff worker for Young Life in Southampton from June, she ran the half marathon. I thought about her. I thought, did anyone else run today? Anyone else? Dom, you probably did it in about an hour and a quarter, did you? Okay, 10K, it doesn't count. No, Dom does that every day anyway. No, you're wrong there, Dom. My knees are my disability. No, I did run the half marathon, but probably not as quick as you would. So Dom is a very quick runner. Bethan ran the half marathon stage so that she could raise money to take kids to the camp in the summer. So she raised a good sum of money today. But I thought about her. It's hard work. If you've ever run 10 kilometers, a long way, or 13 miles, it's hard work, isn't it? Really hard work. And I thought she's done that because she really, 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 really wants to get kids to camp in the summer. One of those kids called, I was talking to in the week, and he said to me, Mr. Woodman, that's my name, he said, I'd love to go to camp, but my family is really poor. He said to me, he said, there's 6 of us, and we live in a 2-bedroom flat, and it'd be really hard for my family to raise money, but I've got my birthday coming up, and I don't mind putting my birthday money in towards it. That's it. So it's a sweet thing. So him and his mates said, well, maybe we could work together and try and raise money to come to this camp in Scotland in the summer. And then Bethan will chip in some money towards that. And Naomi helped raise some money early in the year. So it's a lot of hard work, but we still haven't actually got one kid signed up for camp yet. So I'm still sweating it out. I'm still feeling I'm working all night, not seeing any fruit. But I'm being patient. And one day we will bear fruit. So this is what it says in Galatians, and this is what I take heart from with Young Life and with the school at the time, and then with anything else we're looking at. I know I've talked about bigger projects, but really this was just a couple of men in their workplace, wasn't it? The story of Peter. So in Galatians it says, let us not become weary in doing good or being good news, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So we've got to have this, we've got to feel that passionate spirituality, haven't we? And know that that good news that we're spreading every day as we live and breathe, breathing in God and breathing out God, that it will bear fruit. Because that's what we are. That's what we're made to be. Apple trees bear apples. We bear fruit ourselves in God. Now, I thought about another time with Peter and John and the guys. They got despondent again, didn't they? When Jesus died on the cross, rose again. Peter was a lost soul, wasn't he? He'd gone back to being full of disappointment and despair and shame. And shame was a big thing, wasn't it? Because he'd let Jesus down. He said, I will never deny you, but he denied him 3 times, just as Jesus said. And so the amazing thing is, and I'll tell you the truth, I wasn't going to do this talk tonight because I was standing in for others, and I had a talk from a couple of weeks ago when it snowed, so I thought I could just pull that out of the hat, no problem. But we got together with a few church leaders recently, and all of them that were in the room were all speaking on this passage this month. Quite amazing, isn't it? All speaking on the great catch of fish and how Jesus, even though we feel like we work hard all night and we don't produce anything, that by God's grace, as we sung this morning, just one touch from the King changes everything. This grace comes and we see God's life come. So the amazing thing is that Peter's full of this shame again. And then it happened again, didn't it? Peter says, let's go out fishing. I'm bored, fed up. Let's go back to what we used to do before we met Jesus. And I won't go through the whole story, but there they are after the resurrection. Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't realize it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? This must have been getting some flashbacks. No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you'll find some. Then Peter says, it's the Lord. And he ran to Jesus and found, and then there was that beautiful moment, wasn't there, where Jesus restored him and asked him if he loved him. But the most important thing was they just sat and had breakfast together, didn't they? I was thinking, it's an amazing way to reappear to your disciples there, isn't it? In that, having smoked mackerel on the shore with your friends is quite an intimate thing, isn't it? It's a close thing. It's a friendship thing. Jesus could have done anything at that point. He could have appeared through the sky. He could have come walking on water, running on water, jet ski, anything. But at the shore, he did that, and he knew that Peter would respond again to Christ and again find that friendship in him, be cleaned from that shame that he had, and be set again on that sense of purpose, meaning and purpose, to become a fisherman. And so Peter was the one who stood on the day of Pentecost and called people to follow God. And it was a very fruitful man. So what I wanted to do, and the reason why I brought this out again, is it didn't just happen to Peter once, it happened twice. And we might have raised our faith once and then gone back to the point of being disappointed, embarrassed, lost a bit of energy. But I wanted to ask us today whether we'd raise our faith again, to respond to Christ, to be fishers of men, women and children, not people that impose our faith or proselytize or try to persuade people, but that we are lights to the world, that we bring light to our situations, that we bring hope, we bring kindness, we bring goodness into people's situations. When people are really struggling to make sense of the world, struggling with their situations, when they find that a family member's sick, that we are the people that are there to pray for them, to bless them, to support them, to comfort them, to be good news to them. And so I don't know if you'd raise yourself to that challenge, that invitation to Christ, to raise your faith again, maybe to raise your faith for family members, for friends at work, to pray for people patiently, knowing that a seed doesn't grow in a day. It sometimes takes a little bit longer to bear fruit. The other thing we were chatting about in the church was, church leadership team, is this idea that Jesus rebuilt this little community around a simple breakfast, didn't he? Like a little bit of smoked mackerel and they're probably big fish. And so actually, how many times do we have meals with people that are, so actually to sit down and to eat with people who aren't church people, but just invite people over for a meal to also have breakfast or lunch or dinner. And we wanted to think again about seeing whether we do that more often as a group. Now, you may think, I have people around my house all the time, or you wouldn't want to come to my house, believe me, and so you might think that. But you can always meet somewhere else if it's really that bad. But when you eat with people, it builds a sense of community, doesn't it? People do chat a lot more. People are open to you just sharing a bit about what's going on in your life, and they share, and there's a life that comes from that. So I wanted to encourage us to think about, through this year, actually, who could I have around my table who doesn't know God? Who could I invite in? When could I use food and find that space to bring life into there? Does that sound good? So give it a thought. I mean, some of you have people around all the time. Some of you may not want to. But think about, well, where could I do it? I know for me, some of the times, well, for all of us probably, some of the most precious times have been when you just grab a burger with someone, or you just meet in a cafe and you just talk over food. And that you give time to people effectively, don't you? You give space. And so that's what Jesus did with Peter. Over that meal, he quietly just restored him and quietly just got that shame together. I don't think necessarily our good news is going to be in a big event, big open air event. It's going to be probably one-to-one, one family to one family, couple to couple, person to person, over meals, just sharing the good news of Jesus with one another. So the last scripture I've got to finish, thanks for bearing with me, is this one, which is in Thessalonians, which says, work produced by faith, labor prompted by love, endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. And so let's just pray. Father, whenever we've loved you with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, we know that work is produced by faith, that labor is prompted by love, and that endurance is inspired by hope in you. So, Father, pray that you'd give us strength. Pray you'd renew our faith. Fill us with a passion for you and a passion for those around us. May we be as relentless as you were about that little lost sheep, the little lost son, the little lost coin. Help us to pursue the lost. In Jesus' name, amen.